Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. So in today's video, as you can tell by the title, we will be talking about two winter storms. Now, a lot of you guys, or some of you, have been concerned as to why am I calling these winter storms when it's in fact spring. The reason being, I don't call winter storms based on what season they occur in. I call them winter storms based on what type of precipitation they produce. If they produce snow, sleet, freezing rain, they deserve to be called winter storms. I just wanted to clear that up. Now, as you heard, yes, there are two separate winter storms going on affecting two vastly different locations, and we will be having a pretty cold and snowy pattern as we go into April. Again, the term snowy being relative, obviously, to April. This isn't a snowy February pattern, it's a snowy February or April pattern. Right. If you guys, before we start, like these type of videos, like weather, and you resonate with this channel at any point, consider giving this a like and maybe subscribe and leave any questions down below. Otherwise, let's start talking about these winter storms. So I want to start off by looking at the Weather Ready Nation map on the National Weather Service website. Notice that we have several watches, warnings for winter storms, advisories, right? One large area being right here. That is obviously looking pretty concerning. It's a pretty large area under those winter storm warnings, and it's not just the mountains. And then notice across the Northeast, most of New Hampshire are actually under winter storm warnings, right? And some portions of Vermont, Massachusetts, even going as far as just the counties bordering Connecticut and into portions of Maine and New York. Let's take a look at the first one into the Northeast. So let's take a look at this one. Let's take a look at the total snowfall expected. Right, notice right now it's raining across many of these locations, and if you're to take a look at the radar, we see that is true. However, with heavy precipitation rates and cold air still plenty being aloft, a lot of this is beginning to transition, or maybe not a lot at this point, but a lot will begin to transition to snow. Right? Notice, this is what it was at 4:15. Very little snow, but watch this area right here as the snow blossomed, and it kind of became a snowball effect, right? As soon as one area began, the snow area grew, and again, it may not be necessarily cold enough for it to fall, but up aloft it is for sure cold enough, and that's what's causing the snow to fall, while other areas are still seeing rain. Notice that there are some blustery conditions and some showers and storms occurring on the backside of this. I wouldn't say storms, just snow squalls, rain showers. They're pivoting in some of that cool air, which again is providing for that snowfall. All right, let's take a look at, for example, what we were looking at, the National Weather Service, and there's a story for New Hampshire. Notice what they have: greatest uncertainty near the coast, as that is to do with the coast, as always. There's uncertainty whether or not that snow will transition to snow, or that rain will transition to snow, or will it be kept as predominantly rain as the waters are a bit too warm. We'll have to see. Notice in some areas, up to 9, potentially even over a foot of snow, especially in the higher elevated areas. You can see some pockets of very light orange right there at the tip of my arrow. But notice, decent amounts, right? Not a massive snowstorm, but again, in terms of April, it's a sizable one. It's nothing on the record books. They've had way more significant April snowstorms, but we've just come from a very warm pattern. So any snow that does fall is rather kind of a surprise, right? Notice what they have here across portions of Vermont, New Hampshire, and into portions of Massachusetts. Look at that. Worcestershire. I don't know how to pronounce the name properly. There's 1,000 different pronunciations, apparently. Notice, northwestern Connecticut, 1 to 2, right? And into portions of Massachusetts, it starts getting into the potentially double digits, and especially as you get into Vermont and New Hampshire, right? So that's the first winter storm, and I'll show you how it looks like on the kind of the future radar, what it's predicted to come off. And here's our second one. This one is further to the north, impacting a broader area and completely different, right? This is the central U.S. bordering with the western United States. Notice, look at that. They obviously have uncertainty. As with all spring dynamic systems, there's loads of uncertainty. Usually with any system, there's uncertainty. But notice at the impact level, moderate to high. So that is definitely something that may seem unusual, especially for the amount of snow that's falling, right? This isn't really a massive system that is falling. However, it's spring. Many people may have gotten too used to the warm conditions that we're heading, right? They already were there prior several weeks ago, and potentially any trees that have gotten thicker buds, right? Maybe increased in volume, they could easily pick up this wet, heavy snow, which could, down trees, cause power outages. And you can see 6 to 12, 4 to 8, a sizable amount, definitely more widespread than the one in the Northeast. But I do want to point out that this extends even into portions of Kansas, right? Goodland, Kansas, often a city that sees spring and winter within one day. You could see could pick up 3 to 5, 1 to 2 inches, and they just have a winter weather advisory because, again, it's nothing too unusual to see a late spring snowstorm for those locations. It almost happens every year. Hard to come by not seeing one in any given year. Notice to the south there are some winter storm warnings. Do apologize about that. There is one heading right towards Houston potentially. It probably, if it is severe warned still by the time it reaches Houston, it probably won't be, a massive severe weather threat, but it definitely is something that should be just kept an eye on, because sometimes these little buggers could be a bit more dangerous than you would like, right? Notice Louisiana, with all the heavy rain they had just gotten, expecting more, this will induce more flooding, and these areas, these rivers are already absolutely, very high, so any additional rainfall will just take them over the limit. And let's take a look at what the radar looks like for the second storm. Again, notice a big area of nothing in between, but here's where our second system lies, but the radar hasn't loaded in. There we go. Notice there's our area of rain and potentially a severe thunderstorm heading towards Houston. Right now it's severe warned. As I'm making this video, will probably already reach the Houston area, or just north as by the time I finish this video. Notice it is on a weakening trend, right? It did pass just north of Austin, and now it's kind of trending towards those locations. Again, though, might lie just to the north. Dallas, areas to the north, right? Northeastern Texas, notice what we have, right? Definitely not a bad event of rain. Nothing too flooding or concerning, but definitely some nice rainfall that they needed. And look at to the north, there's our snowstorm. Cheyenne, Denver, large cities, Rapid City, all seeing snowfall, and it's pretty consistent. Notice it did really just blossom in the past few hours across Colorado and Nebraska, and you can see that is kind of shifting to the north, feeding into this band of snow that has been going on across South Dakota and Nebraska for several hours into Badlands, the Black Hills, South Dakota. And notice that North Platte, a large city in Nebraska, is just seeing the rain out of this, though they may pick up a bit of snow as this rain snow line shifts to the south. All right, but again, highest amounts probably expected into a bit further north into South Dakota, bordering with Wyoming area, and obviously the elevated area. So let's take a look at how this plays out. This is what the climate or National Weather Service thinks how much snow will fall. This is their forecast, just put out into a model layout, right? And notice, to the northeast, they have some locations picking up a lot of snow. You see those colors right there, those pink? That is indicative of well over a foot, and in some areas, potentially a foot and a half. Now here, the amounts are a bit lighter, but for example, North Platte, 4 inches, right? Areas right there, I don't really know what city that is, but it's a measuring station. Notice what they have. They have 10 inches, so double-digit amounts. Colorado or Denver, probably around, less than 5, but still could disrupt quite a bit of travel. Notice northeastern Colorado definitely seeing a good doozy out of this. So that is some good news. They need quite a bit of this precipitation, as it is still pretty dry. Okay, let's take a look at the kind of the play out of these two systems and see how they dance together over the next several hours across our United States, right? And southern Canada, with that one across the northeast. So notice, right, what we see here is a snowstorm, 2 of them. Notice, right, there's our first one. This is what they look like right now. By 1 a.m. today, the northeast one will look like more of a snowstorm, right? Massachusetts, Denver, or Massachusetts, Vermont, New Hampshire, New York, and Maine are all seeing snow at this point. The rain has transitioned. Pretty strong winds could be on the north side of this thing and the southern side, as this is a pretty feisty low pressure. Again, this low pressure will most likely keep most of the snow away from Massachusetts and larger areas by the coast. However, for example, Maine is an area, as you saw, the National Weather Service is uncertain about the coastal areas of Maine, I should specify, where there could be a potential for quite a bit of snowfall or really none at all, depending on how the system unravels and during its intensity, because tomorrow by the afternoon it's still going on, but it's weakening the intensity rates, and because of the weakening, the nucleation is lost, and a lot of that probably will convert over to some rain showers, even if they were previously seeing snow. And notice this moves into Canada, a bit of Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, Canadian Maritimes, pick up a bit of snow, nothing too heavy, nothing to go home about, as the system moves on very quickly. It does take its longest time across the Northeast, which again could prove to be pretty bad for some of these locations with heavy wet snowfall. Now, regarding the second system, notice what it does. This is what it looks like right now. This is what it look like around 12, right, midnight. Notice Colorado, Nebraska, Kansas, South Dakota, the western areas of those named will be under snow. Wyoming, higher elevations, probably seeing way more than the lower ones, especially the south, further south than needs to go. Notice this rain snow band shifts to the south, and you could even clip areas like Wichita with a few hours of light to moderate snowfall. But again, that's also a bit tough to say and depends on which model you look at. You can see the GFS is advertising that, but then, quickly by the evening hours, it loses that. And this system, from a pretty feisty rain and snowmaker, devolves into just a scattered rain event, and eventually that too disappears. I do want to point out that in the future, aside from these two snowstorms, we have another threat for snow, and that's into Monday and Tuesday of next week, with a pretty chilly cold air mass, a very cold air mass for April, preceded by a low pressure that has quite a bit of snow on its northern side, right into southern Canada. And then look at this, the cold front, rain, snow, potentially into Illinois, Indiana, Michigan. This shouldn't be shovelable snow, but it could definitely leave a dusting. It'll have a hard time accumulating, but if it falls during the morning hours across, say, Missouri, Kansas, that could definitely whiten the ground. And behind that are scattered showers and snow squalls that will be kind of, I guess, drenching the area. Not really drenching, just annoying the folks living there. Again, quite a bit of cold air behind us. Notice that some models are showing a strengthening system out of this cold front across the Northeast, so that is definitely something we'll have to watch for. A late April nor'easter potentially, right? In the future, this model continues to show the GFS, the cold air hanging around, but eventually kind of making a retreat and potentially more of a zonal flow, right, in west to east rather than north to south. The total snowfall between those two events, you can see there's our front associated snow right there, not bad, right? But this is obviously our first and second main system, which will be dumping the majority of the snow. This is just through 114 hours because this model hasn't fully progressed. But if I were to take a look at the GFS model, that's a few hours older, that does run through 384 hours. Notice it advertises quite a few areas to get more snow, right? The mountains and even the southern Canada area, and even the northern plains, which again isn't completely unusual for this time of the year. Okay, Canadian model, right? Notice through 240 hours, so less far than GFS, but it's way more aggressive with the snow. Look at that, potentially painting a significant snowstorm for Fargo, Duluth, right? A bit later on. Here's our first system. Here's our second, right? The first two main ones. Not even Chicago, Indianapolis, Detroit, cities in Ohio, picking up some snow. Look at that, with a little feisty piece at 240. So let's quickly track this through. Notice there's today's system. Canadian model, not as excited with the snow as the other models. This is the second system across the plains, again, quickly devolves and disintegrates. This one keeps its act a bit better together. It's still weak and becomes fast moving, so the impacts are limited. Notice we see that cold front that the GFS was showing. So again, the Canadian agrees with this model. And then look, it sees that snow develop across Kansas, Missouri, into portions of Michigan, right, Wisconsin, and not a bad cold front develops out of this. And the Canadian model is one of these that advertises for a powerful snowstorm across southern Canada, especially with this cold front. So it's definitely something to be watchful for. Notice even potentially some lake effect getting turned on, right? Some snow squalls. Definitely the environment would be conducive. This is pretty late into the season, I want to say, right? So definitely chilly air, and if you were to look at the anomalies, they are indicating that you could see very, very below average conditions, and the Canadian is probably a bit too aggressive with that I just showed you, but most models are showing below average to an extent. And then notice some lake effect showers getting spawned, and look at this, what the Canadian does with the pattern. If you recall, the GFS turns it into zonal flow, right? Warms things up. The Canadian does so just enough to fuel more significant systems. Look at that beast right there developing, right? Now, obviously, snow at this time, so late in the season, would be hard to come by, in significant amounts across Illinois, Wisconsin, Michigan, but, the northern locations and obviously further south of those named states that I just said would be rather historic, right? These locations, it's more likely for them to see snow, and it could continue into even potentially very early May, but by then it starts warming very rapidly. And I do want to say that it is possible for even snow showers in May across pretty far south locations if a pattern unfolds and you just get like these little scattered showers, right? So no big storm system, but they could whiten the ground for a bit, or just seeing snowflakes on a background of blooming trees is always a bit eerie, but kind of beautiful in the same way. All right, so that's a Canadian. I showed you the GFS. The high-res models from these two systems show similar events. You can see the NAM does show that cold front, which we'll have to be watched for. Total snowfall, there it is. You can see the NAM, like always, having a cold bias, advertising for some double-digit amounts into the potentially foot range. And then here, that's what shows across the Nebraska Plains area. And then the RGEM, the second best model for 84 hours. Outlook, notice, shows similar things. This is the HER model, right? A decent model I like to look at for a very short range, and you can see it shows a lot for the Northeast. Some areas, again, picking up well over a foot, and in decent amounts for the Nebraska area, again, extending potentially into North Platte and even pushing towards Iowa border. Probably not getting there. All right, I do want to point out one more thing, the European model. Let's take a look at what it shows in terms of the snowstorms, right? Here's our first system. Here's our second system spinning away. Quite a bit of snow for the Northeast, according to the European. I've been, again, a bit less excited, the European, maybe with this system in terms of the snow reaching Wichita, like the GFS showed. But it does devolve, and it does keep the Northeast system, Nor'easter, a bit longer around. And then eventually, it does show that cold front that the models are advertising. The European does that as well, not as aggressively, but it does show colder behind it. You can't really see it on this map, but it's definitely there. And really not as of a cold pattern according to the European as other models, but still showing snowfall nonetheless. And you can see this is what we have. Not bad amounts, right? Especially out of these two first storm systems. And I do want to show you that the European does keep it chilly, as if you were to look at the 2-meter temperature anomaly in a longer range, it does keep things rather chilly. Look at that. Just air mass after cold air mass, right? So here's our first one. Here's our second one. You can definitively see it right there. Here's kind of our third one. Potentially fourth one might get staved off or come down eventually into May. We'll have to see. Okie dokie, folks. That's it. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all guys in the next episode. See ya.